Okay, folks, we're leaving the cinema. We, as in you and me. My glasses are falling off, but I think I'm just about safe to unmask. Just a few seconds. I'll unmask and you'll see my charming face. We're discussing Rocky IV. These are good masks that I have. Rocky IV, yes. I believe it came out around Christmas, December 1985. I was a young child. Credit to my mother. She took me to see this movie in the theater when I was a small child with a group of friends, as many as we could fit in the car. Somebody gave me the wrestling album on audio cassette. And here we are, all these years later, to see Rocky IV in the theater. And I can't remember if I ever sat and watched the entirety of Rocky IV on cable, or I'm sure I did. Definitely seen sequences. I can't ever remember buying a VHS or a DVD of Rocky IV per se and enjoying it, but I know that I've seen the movie since the original release, and here we are all these years later having a moment. Now, is this movie going to strike me as it did when I was 3 or 4? Not really. I mean, and also this movie's been critiqued and criticized by people who have issues with how it represents Russia or Drago or the Russian people and so forth. But remember, at the end, the real payoff of this movie is the change speech, the "we can all change" speech that Rocky gives to the Russians, and the Soviet premier stands up. Oh, I spoilered you, okay? I guess I should have said spoiler alert. This fucking thing, the zipper is going to annoy me if I don't hide it. Any big takeaways from this one? Well, here's the Rocky pattern, folks. The Rocky pattern is that this is you probably figured this out on your own, or somebody's written about it. But if you take the Rocky series and you take, let's call the opponent. Rocky 1, the opponent is Apollo. Apollo wins. Rocky 2, the opponent once again is Apollo Creed, and Apollo Creed loses. Rocky 3, the opponent is Mr. Clubber Lang. Mr. T is Clubber Lang, and Clubber Lang wins. And then at the end of the movie, Clubber Lang loses. And so those were all Rocky. Now, if you move forth to this one, Rocky IV, the opponent, just the opponent, is Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, who does a great job. Very physical role. Ivan Drago wins. Doesn't beat Rocky, but he still wins. He beats Apollo. And then at the end of the movie, Ivan Drago loses. Spoilers. When you come to Rocky V, Tommy Gunn, played by the late Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison's Tommy Gunn wins the title, and then he loses to Rocky in the street fight. Rocky VI, the opponent, I'm a little shaky. I think it was Antonio Tarver, actually a really great, real fighter, and I guess he wins, and then I guess, you know, whatever the fuck happens, I vaguely recall Rocky Balboa. But the point is, if you look at that pattern, Rocky 1 and 2, Apollo wins, then Apollo loses. Rocky 3, Clubber Lang wins, then Clubber Lang loses. Rocky 4, Drago wins, and then Drago loses. 5, Morrison, Tommy Gunn wins the title, Tommy Gunn loses the title. So all the opponents they get up and they go down. And usually it's at the bequest of Rocky. Now, there are some variations on a theme, and what we saw tonight was that, which is Rocky IV. Basically, it's not Rocky who loses to Ivan Drago, it's Apollo, and he loses his life. And then you have Rocky V, which whoever the champion is, the meatball or whoever, the tomato can that Tommy Gunn beats, loses the title, and then Tommy has to fight Rocky in the street fight. Also, Rocky IV and Rocky V are main evented by non-title matches. Just remember, the American Boxing Association, whatever the fuck that is, the Ring Magazine title, did not recognize Ivan Drago versus fucking Rocky as a title fight. So this was a non-title match. And the street fight at the end of Rocky V is a non-title match. Now, I am kind of cringing inside. I'm going to be open-minded tomorrow because Rocky 5 is mostly known as the weakest of the bunch of the original 5. And Rocky 6, Rocky Balboa, is kind of like it's kind of like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Like, it's not quite one of the originals. It's not the sequels either. Like, Rocky Balboa, it really is on a fucking weird island by itself, like this 2006 movie where I get upset because they killed fucking Adrian. I do want to put Adrian over tonight, folks. I want to say that Adrian, Talia Shriver, you know, look, a guy like Sylvester Stallone, who works out so much and is in great physical condition, he's just going to age very well. Talia Shriver's a normal human being, and so she shows her age a little bit more, and it's just kind of interesting to me because she probably, not even probably, but she is a better actress than what's kind of written for her on the page as fucking Adrian. But it's just one of those deals. Sometimes men genetically favors men. If you look at that last fucking whatever the fuck Star Wars movie, Harrison Ford aged much better, in no offense, but to Carrie Fisher. I mean, Harrison Ford still looked like Harrison Ford, and Carrie not so much. And rest in peace to her, Princess Leia. So I'm sure all the women are upset, but I'm just telling truths. That's all. But Adrian, Talia Shriver is a great Adrian. She doubts Rocky in this. They have that famous staircase scene in Rocky 4. One thing I would say, folks, is that, like I talked about last night, this pattern of killing somebody, by the time we're getting to the end of fucking Rocky 4, the corner's looking thin. I mean, we don't have Mick. We don't have fucking Apollo. Tony, the actor's name is Tony, who, oh man, I just had his fucking name. Great actor who played Apollo's corner man. I think he was there all the way since Rocky 1. God damn it. I think it was, is his name Tony David or Tony? And who's he? Duke. He plays Duke. Tony Charles or something. Tony is a great actor. He's actually one of the best yellers. Throw in the damn towel! And then, like, he has some great moments of yelling. If you really had a highlight reel of all the cornermen between Mickey and fucking Apollo and Duke, you know, you could really make a case that Duke's right up there as far as like a real genuine fucking yeller as far as the cornerman. So Duke, you know, finally gets his shine after everyone else is dead. I talk about these Rocky movies like they're real life. You can't talk about Rocky fucking 4 without talking about James Brown living in America. Once again, folks, if you're seeing this, if you're a millennial fuck or a post-millennial, hey, millennials, how do you feel now that you're fucking old? You know what I mean? Because you millennial assholes that have been waving the banner of Tyler, of fucking Katy Perry or fucking whatever you've been waving for 20 years, you're old as fuck now too. So how do you feel, you millennial fucks, that your fucking SpongeBob nostalgia is now catching up to you, you fucking assholes, and your computers? So anyway, you know, if you saw this movie now, you might laugh at it, you might scoff at it. But back in the fucking day, this glass-nose stuff at the end of Rocky, this fucking change speech, and this premiere standing up to cheer Rocky, and fucking Drago hanging out in the corner listening to Rocky's change speech, that was some real life shit, you fucks. So you may not understand it, you may not appreciate it, you might scoff, but someday people will be scoffing at your coronavirus fucking blogs and your bullshit. So it's all relative. I enjoyed the goddamn movie. If you didn't, I don't know what to tell you. I can tell you a funny anecdote. Once upon a time, I lived in an apartment way after the fucking Rocky movies had come and gone. And these two, me and my roommate had the third floor attic apartment, paying $375 a month total. The guys that beneath us had like this little fucking asbestos gym in the basement of this fucking apartment. And I say it's asbestos. There's probably asbestos. I never tested. But they had a fucking a heavy bag that was hanging from the thing, and if you punched it too hard, it would fall down on the floor. So you had to fucking mount it back up. And they had like some shit-ass weights. And they had like a boombox down there with the fucking Rocky 4 soundtrack on audio cassette, which had like all the songs from the other goddamn movies. I'm going to go over 10 minutes. to tell you this story. And I would go down there and I would hit the fucking punching bag. I'd buy some gloves and I'd fucking listen to the Rocky IV audio tape. And I'd hit the fucking bag and I'd lift those shitty weights. And that's the type of thing this goddamn movie, Rocky IV and fucking Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger and all this mid-80s shit that you fucks scoff at, this is what made a generation of men. So when you have, for professional wrestling fans, the Kenny Omegas and the fucking whoever sticking their thumbs in each other's butts and 30 super kicks a match and all that stuff that I rant about in Mike Messier's Pro Wrestling Rants, now you realize the type of men that we looked up to. Interesting to note that Nikita Koloff, the wrestler Steve Simpson or Sean Simpson, has a wonderful story about how he auditioned, along with the great former wrestler Kerry Von Erich, who died. They auditioned for this Drago role, and they didn't get it. Nikita thought he was close, but he thought that they didn't want him because he was too physically big, too thick, as he put it, for Stallone to stand next to. Whereas our buddy Dolph Lundgren is tall and lanky, but Stallone didn't feel quite as muscled. He said Nikita said, or Sean Simpson said, or Steve Simpson, that he knew all his lines and fucking Rocky didn't. But once again, all these parallels. This movie is made in 1985. It still holds up as entertainment, but I will admit this, folks. I did kind of hit that fucking Fonzie moment, that the crossing the fish or the jumping the shark, where I really just could see that it's getting to be a challenge to go to all these goddamn movies, these Rocky movies, because you start to see, as a filmmaker myself, and I do have Mike Messier original films, Disregard the Vampire, a Mike Messier documentary, The Impeccable, and so forth on this channel that you can watch for free, assholes. Just subscribe and share the goddamn videos once in a while. But I'm seeing that there's these patterns. Like I said, the opening pattern of, you know, the opponent wins, the opponent loses. Then you have the kill a friend. You know what I mean? It's like the add a kid on sitcoms, the kill a friend. And then you have the revenge. Then you have the fight with Adrian. You're too old for this, Rocky. You can't win, Rocky. Adrian, I'm a fighter. So, I mean, all that crap. So I can see where, like, at the end of 1985, it's like, okay, let's put a ribbon on this. And then we fucking had to go to the well one too many times. And Rocky V, I always just took as a fucking commentary or against Don King and against the powers that be in the boxing industry. That's how I always saw that movie. And also this kind of storyline, and I'm treading water here, folks, because if for some god-awful reason, if Sylvester Stallone himself always sees it, and he ever sees these videos, but there's a certain thread of the son character, Rocky Jr., in the Rocky movies. There's a certain thread, a parallel, if you would, of Rocky, of Sylvester Stallone's real-life son. And I don't want to cast aspersions, but I believe he passed away prematurely, not you know, as a young person, I guess 30 or 35 years old. So there's some parallels there with the Rocky son character, Rocky Jr. of Sly Stallone's real son, and I maybe not push it further than that out of respect. But if you watch these movies, you can kind of get what I'm getting at. I think different actors played Rocky's son in most of the movies. I could be wrong. I think Rocky's son was first introduced in Rocky II as an infant. And, you know, I think it was Mick, or Mick says, is that it? You know, so, I mean, the point of the matter is this, folks. The Creed movies kind of did something very interesting. They went to Apollo Creed's son, and of course, a friend of mine, I'll give him credit, Jamie Reborn, a guy who directed the film Right at Block that I was in as an actor, he reported that the timeline, the time age of Apollo's son is way off. Because in reality, he'd be like 50 when he was first fighting, but he's more like 25 in the 2016 Creed movie. So if you do the math, because there's two kids in Rocky 1, and I believe that they're established as Apollo's daughter and son, and basically they're like 6 or 7 years old, or 5. And so if you do the math, it makes absolutely no sense that Creed, the son of Apollo, would be fighting here and blah, blah, blah. Any fucking way, folks. So, Mike Messier, I do give I do give this movie a thumbs up. Another thought that came to mind, Dolph Lundgren and Carl Weathers, man, they were really kind of fucked and screwed by the film industry, or maybe not. I mean, you could say that they both had great careers, and Red Sonja and the original Punisher film that Dolph Lundgren was in He-Man. And look, yes, they've had better careers than me. Fuck you. But did they have the type of career that these gentlemen deserved? I would argue not, to be honest with you, because both men, Carl Weathers especially as Apollo, but I mean, and you saw the humor he did with that Adam Sandler movie, the golf one. Was it Happy Gilmore? But you really just feel like these guys could have even gotten more big box office movies. So time is fleeting, folks. We must make the most of time because, you know, the Father Time is undefeated. So MikeMessier.com, if you've been enjoying these comeback classics, the Cinemark Theater, I'll give it credit for hosting me and other film viewers. Rocky IV had a lot of people here tonight, folks, and no talking children. If you saw my Rocky I movie report, I was upset that there was infants or children in the theater talking during Rocky I, which is the most dramatic of them all. I do believe that Rocky I won the Oscar for Best Picture. We start to see in this Rocky IV, I believe, is this the first one or was it 3 that Stallone directed? And, you know, Stallone, I just say that, you know, I think he did a great job, but I mean, he kind of goes to that montage stuff a little bit too much for my taste. You know, like there's a sequence in this movie where we have a training in Russia sequence. The sequence ends when Adrian shows up at the fucking lodge, the Russian fucking coffee lodge that Rocky's staying in. And then they go right back into another fucking training sequence, training montage. So you go from training montage to Adrian scene to training montage. Okay, folks, so tomorrow night is Rocky V. I hope you fucking assholes have enjoyed this video. MikeMessier.com, subscribe and watch my stuff, my original films. You might want to watch them, help me out, and do everything that I say. MikeMessier.com, thanks for watching. Subscribe and share the videos and like.